The Shadowlands of Kashyyyk. When people think of the most dangerous places in the galaxy, they picture the worlds of the Sith, barren deserts littered with tombs, planets where the dark side is carved into the stone, worlds like Korriban, Ziost, or Droman Khas. But some of the most terrifying places in the galaxy are not the worlds that belong to the Sith. They are places the Jedi thought they understood, places they believed were alive, vibrant, and safe. Kashyyyk is one of those worlds, a planet the Jedi frequented, a world known for its beauty, its life, and its towering forests. But Kashyyyk has a second face. Hidden far below the canopy is a region so hostile that even the Jedi learned not to go there. A place where light fades, the air thickens, and the Force itself feels wrong. The Shadowlands. This is not a place corrupted by the Sith, at least not at first. It was damaged by terrors far older than them. Something ancient scarred this world, twisted its ecosystem, and left behind a darkness that never healed. And later, that darkness was perfected, because within this poisoned wilderness, the Sith would create what many considered to be their magnum opus, a war beast, a living weapon designed for one purpose: to hunt and to kill Jedi. The Shadowlands are not just dangerous, they are uniquely suited to kill, and they exist in a place you would never expect. When you land on Kashyyyk, it is already trying to kill you. Even without the Shadowlands, Kashyyyk is not a gentle world. Its forests are vertical mazes of death. Its predators are built to hunt in 3 dimensions. Its ecosystem rewards patience and brutality. Katarns stalk the upper canopies, tracking prey for days before striking. Kinrath infest the mid-levels, nesting in the dark, overwhelming victims in swarms. Massive predators cling to bark, vines, and shadow, turning every step into a gamble. This is a planet where falling is often deadlier than fighting. And yet, this was Kashyyyk before it broke. Because for all of its dangers, the forest still follows rules. Life hunts life. Predators kill to survive. Balance existed, even if it is cruel. But the Shadowlands were not always what they are now. They were made that way. When the Rakatan arrived, long before the Republic, long before the Jedi, the Rakatan came to the world of Kashyyyk. They did not come as explorers, they came as engineers. To the Rakatan Infinite Empire, Kashyyyk is not a living world, it was a problem. Their records later revealed that the planet was deemed incompatible of sustaining the level of production that they required, and so they attempted to fix it. Terraforming engines were deployed, ecosystems were altered, natural evolution was accelerated beyond stability, and then, as if this were not enough, they placed a star map there, a device steeped in the dark side. According to the Jedi Jolee Bindo, it was this combination that doomed the Shadowlands. The terraforming machinery warped the biology of the lower forest, while the star map saturated it with dark side energy for a millennia. The Rakatan eventually abandoned Kashyyyk, but the damage was done. It became a dark side nexus, but we throw that term around a lot. What is a dark side nexus? Over time, the Shadowlands became something worse than a dangerous jungle. A dark side nexus is not simply a place where evil has occurred. It is a location where the dark side accumulates, where suffering, corruption, and unnatural influence saturate the environment, where the Force no longer flows cleanly, but it pools, festers, and distorts. In places like this, life evolves and changes. Predators are more aggressive, ecosystems destabilize. This is a place where creatures who should not exist begin to thrive. For a Jedi, a nexus of this caliber is disorienting. The Force is muted, instinct fails, confidence erodes. The Shadowlands became one of these places, not intentionally, but still completely. It was a world made putrid. The Shadowlands were poisoned, unstable, dangerous for even the natives, but they were not yet optimized. It was lethal, but it had not perfected the art of killing Jedi yet. At the time, the jungle did not care who it killed, be it Jedi, Wookiee, or Beast. All are equal before it. But the Shadowlands were hostile to the Force now, but its perfect weapon will come later. Because dark side nexuses do something else. They also call out, across space, and across the Force itself. And eventually, something heard that call. Something that did not see the Shadowlands as a curse, but as a home. A new species. A species shaped to hunt Force sensitives. A species the Jedi would try time and time again and fail to erase. And when they arrived, the Shadowlands stopped being merely dangerous. It became the Jedi's end. The warbeast was engineered far before the Sith ever turned their gaze towards Kashyyyk. The creature began before even the Sith themselves. As the first experiment, long before the Republic, during the age of the Jedi, the Force itself was not divided into light and dark. It was studied, balanced, and tested in ways that would later be considered heretical. During a time known as the Great Despot War, a Jedi master by the name of Quan Jang attempted to create a practical solution to a battlefield issue. He engineered creatures known as Tarentas, alchemical beasts capable of sensing volatile energies and hidden dangers. At first, they were merely tools. They could be controlled, useful, but something unexpected occurred. The Tarentas began to develop a taste, not simply for flesh alone, but for Force-enriched flesh. They learned that Force sensitives were different, stronger, more nourishing, more satisfying, and once that instinct takes root, it never left them. When the Sith took over, when the dark side finally asserted dominance and the Sith emerged from the schism of the 12 Dark Jedi, those early experiments didn't disappear, but they were refined, perfected even. Sith Kasai priests, tasked not with philosophy but with creation, took the Tarenta concept and reshaped it into something more aggressive, the Terentatek. Unlike other war beasts, the Tarentatek was not designed for spectacle. It was not massive like the Leviathans. In fact, it was about the quarter size of a standard Rancor. It was not apocalyptic like the War Worms. Those creatures were devastating, but they're temporary. The Tarentatek was made for a more sinister purpose, to endure. It was smaller, more efficient, and that made it far more dangerous. According to the Chronicles of Sora's Sin, one of the original 12 Dark Jedi, the Tarentatek was one of the Kasai's most notable creations. It was bred before the year 16,899 BBY, and almost immediately, it exposed a fatal flaw in the Sith's hierarchy. The Tarentatek did not care who commanded it. It hunted the strongest Force presence that it could find. This meant purebloods became prey. In a society built entirely on dominance and superiority, this created pure havoc. To be the most powerful Sith in the room meant becoming a target. The Tarentatek did not reinforce hierarchy, but it punished it. Worse still, its behavior had social consequences as well. If the Tarentatek hunted you, it confirmed your power, but it also marked you. Others feared standing close to you. Others felt diminished in your presence. Some resented the danger that you attracted. This creature destabilized Sith culture simply by existing. But the Sith did not discard it simply because it worked. They turned it towards the Jedi as they realized the truth. The Tarentatek was never meant to enforce Sith rule. It was meant to break Jedi. When deployed against Jedi enclaves and outposts, the results were horrifyingly effective. The Tarentatek's hide resisted the Force. Many Force techniques failed entirely. Others provoked the creature instead of harming it. But the greatest horror was biological. Tarentateks fed on Force-sensitive blood. Not metaphorically, but literally. The more attuned a Jedi was to the Force, the richer the prey. And the Jedi learned something that shattered centuries of training. Using the Force only made things worse. Jedi who hunted Tarentateks were given a special piece of advice. Do not use the Force. Not because it didn't work, but because it would make you delicious. Every surge of the Force enriches the blood. Every technique intensified the creature's aggression. Every attempt at dominance turned into invitation. To use the Force was to season the meal. This is why Tarentateks were so difficult to eradicate. This is why the Great Hunt was never successful. And it is also why, when the Shadowlands of Kashyyyk became a dark side nexus, the outcome was clear. A poisoned place had finally become attractive. As it called out, the Tarentateks were the ones that answered, not as invaders, but as residents. The Shadowlands became a feeding ground with Exar Kun, who understood something that the Jedi did not. The Tarentatek wasn't just a weapon, it was a persistent weapon. When the dark side of the Force grew faint in the galaxy, the Tarentatek do not weaken, but they search. They are drawn instinctively towards concentrations of darkness. They migrate across worlds, burrow into caves, tombs, ruins, and scarred ecosystems where the Force has pooled unnaturally. Exar Kun exploited this. He deployed Tarentateks against Jedi enclaves across the galaxy. Worlds like Tatooine, Tython, Kashyyyk. Wherever Jedi attempted to establish a presence, the creatures followed. And then they fed. Entire outposts erased without siege or warning. Jedi were hunted, not fought. Their Force abilities betrayed them. Their strength made them targets. When Exar Kun was defeated though, the Tarentatek did not disappear. They simply went dormant. And then, the Jedi began what is known as the Great Hunt. The Jedi understood this threat too late. Jedi strike teams were sent across the galaxy to eradicate the Tarentatek wherever they could be found. These creatures were deemed too dangerous to be left alive. Jedi were instructed to hunt in bonded groups of 2 or 3, not for combat efficiency, but only for survival. The presence of the dark side surrounding Terentatek layers was so intense that isolation meant madness or death. Even so, the Great Hunt failed in its true objective, because while many Terentatek were slain, the species itself was never eliminated. When the dark side receded, the survivors did what they always did. They listened. And one place called to them louder than any other. This is why Kashyyyk answered. Many worlds cannot sustain the Terentatek long term, but the Shadowlands could. The Rakatan had already done their work, poisoned the lower forest, terraforming engines that had destabilized and changed the ecosystem. The star map made it worse. But unlike tombs or ruins, the Shadowlands are alive. They are an endless biomass, a permanent darkness, a self-sustaining food chain. Here the Tarentatek do not have to hide, they settle. What was once a deployment zone by Exar became their home. The Shadowlands are not just a forest floor of Kashyyyk, they're a second world. The Warshire trees grow so massive that their canopies blot out the sun. Light never reaches the ground. What little illumination exists comes from bioluminescent fungi and the faint glow of decay. The air is thick with spores, rot, and toxins. Breathing becomes labor. Vision is limited. Sound carries poorly. But the movement of the jungle never stops. The ecosystem is alive and it is deadly. More Kinrath infest the mid-depths, nesting in massive clusters. Shadowland Katarns, heavier, more brutal than their canopy cousins, stalk the ground. Predatory plants, venomous insects, and territorial beasts turn every step into a risk. And beneath all of it, in caves, pits, and ancient sinkholes, this is where the Tarentatek lie in wait. They press inward instead of flowing out. The Wookiees understood this long before the Jedi did. They don't treat the Shadowlands as territory. The Wookiee culture treats it as sacred and feared. Descent into the Shadowlands is rare, reserved for exile, ceremony, or acts of supreme courage. To face what lived below was not expected, but it was legendary. Among Wookiee clans, slaying a Tarentatek was considered one of the greatest feats a chieftain could accomplish. Most would fail. One such chieftain in the lore attempted to kill with Baka's ceremonial blade. He wounded the beast successfully, but the blade shattered and lodged deep into its flesh. The Tarentatek survived. The chieftain did not. The creature lived on, a living reminder that some trials are not meant to be conquered. During the Jedi Civil War, Revan, on the path of redemption, descended deep into the Shadowlands searching for the Starforge. Even for someone like Revan, this is not a place to dominate. Revan knew that this was a place merely to be survived. He encountered the same Tarentatek that had defeated a Wookiee chieftain years earlier, a creature that had survived the ritual, and Revan killed it. He recovered the broken ceremonial blade from its flesh, and he returned it to the Wookiees. Revan understood what the Shadowlands were, a place that the Jedi needed to leave untouched. By the end of the Jedi Civil War, the truth of the Shadowlands was clear. The Jedi were well aware that Terentatek still existed. They knew they hibernated when the dark side waned, and they knew exactly where at least some of them were, the Shadowlands. But there was no campaign, no final purge. Even someone like Revan did not attempt to cleanse it. He didn't try to purify it. He merely survived. The Shadowlands are a place where ancient corruption has been perfected by predation and sustained by an ecosystem that actively punishes the Force. A Terentatek is deadly because it does not need to land a killing blow. A single nick from its claws is enough. The venom acts fast, muscles seize, the body locks in place. If the toxin doesn't kill the victim outright, what follows will. The creature feeds, drawing out Force-enriched blood, consuming not just flesh, but life force itself. Victims are conscious long enough to feel the Force being taken from them, turned into sustenance. To use the Force in desperation only worsens it. Every surge enriches the blood. Every attempt to fight back deepens the hunger. But there is also something strange about the Shadowlands. Deep within them, there are burial grounds. They are ancient, rare, but deliberate. The Wookiees do not speak of them openly, but we do know that they exist, which raises a disturbing question. Why would the Wookiees choose to bury anyone here? We believe there are two prominent possibilities. The first is honor. These burial sites are reserved for the greatest Wookiee warriors, those rare individuals who slew a terentatek and survived. To be laid to rest there would not be punishment, but reverence, a final resting place among the deadliest trial the world can offer. This explains why so few of the burial grounds exist. The second possibility is darker. The Shadowlands are a place of removal, a final exile for the disgraced, those cast out of the clan, those whose actions place them beyond forgiveness. Wookiees are deeply symbolic. They are profoundly moral. If this interpretation is true, then the Shadowlands are not just where the great are honored, they are where the worst are erased, separated from the light of the canopy, returned to the most hostile element of their world. It is not an honor, it is an end. The Shadowlands is one of those locations in Star Wars that is fascinating and has a ton of storytelling potential. It's from a planet we already know. Kashyyyk isn't some obscure Sith world or a lost ruin, it's familiar. And yet, there's a part of it that even the Wookiees leave completely alone. The Shadowlands aren't the result of a single ideology or an empire. They're a perfect collision of mistakes. Neither the Rakatan or the Sith ever planned for the Shadowlands to exist as they do now, but yet together they created the perfect environment for the dark side to persist naturally. That's why it's so different from places like Korriban. The Jedi raid their tombs, they catalog the artifacts, they plunder their knowledge, but there's a structure, a logic. But the Shadowlands don't have any of that. There's no doctrine, no Sith code, no temples. There's nothing to be learned. It's raw, natural chaos, a dark side ecosystem formed long ago. In Star Wars, evil is usually deliberate, but here it's a happy, terrible accident. So my friend, today's holocron leaves you with this question. What do you think the purpose of the burial sites in the Shadowlands truly are? Are they a place of supreme honor, reserved only for the greatest warriors who have conquered the darkness? Or are they a place of exile, where the worst of the worst are removed from the light of the canopy, returned to the most unforgiving part of the world? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And as always, my friends, thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you.